Hey there. I'm Dr. Oel Swensen with Cavalry Health, and here to talk to you today about peptides. We're going to start off with a quick overview of what peptides are, and then the most common categories of peptides and the ones that people are asking about the most frequently. So, briefly, what exactly is a peptide? In short, it is nothing more than a short version, from a chain chemical perspective, of a protein. Proteins like your body uses to communicate between cells, not protein like you eat when you have a steak dinner. Peptides, a little bit like hormones, have multiple messages. That is to say, they don't just do one single thing. They are not hormones, but again, like them, are pluripotent in their effects and their downstream effects as well. For that reason, there's not a way to simply guarantee a certain outcome with a given peptide, unlike, for instance, an antibiotic. Also importantly, most peptides, not all, but most, are not FDA approved or even FDA cleared. Due to a lack of human data, they are considered research grade only and not approved for human use from the eyes of the FDA. Some, nonetheless, in the biohacking community and the longevity space, are still utilizing peptides regardless for their perceived and potential benefits. There are literally hundreds of thousands of peptides out there, and your body produces thousands by itself, if not more. In lab settings, we are able to replicate many of them to ideally duplicate the process that your body does naturally. With respect to the kinds of peptides, obviously we're not going to be covering several thousand types. We are going to talk about the 5 most common categories. And in broad strokes, those include ones for cognitive performance, injury recovery, skin health, sexual health, and muscle mass gain. The 6th category that we're not really going to touch on, and the one that everyone actually knows about, even though they don't necessarily realize it, is weight loss peptides, particularly semaglutide. So we'll get started with the cognitive performance peptides. In this category, though there are quite a few, the ones that we refer to and see asked about most frequently are Cmax, clink, and DHEA. The first 2 are nasal peptides, nasal sprays that is, and the last one is a pill. These work by improving neuroplasticity, at least in theory. What that means is they don't necessarily generate new nerves. But for a bit of background, when you are first born, when you are a child, in your brain, your nerves are interconnected. There are many cross streets, etc., between each nerve. As you develop, you cut some of these cross streets because you don't use them as frequently. And some of those streets get used so frequently they become superhighways. And this is the difference between a child and slower executive function. And as you get older, improved executive function, things you can think through very quickly. As you get even older, those roads begin to break down. Some of these cognitive performance peptides mechanistically can improve neuroplasticity, help rebuild the roads and the connections between those nerves, and therefore are being utilized by some for cognitive performance, brain fog, etc. They're being studied in settings of traumatic brain injury as well as Alzheimer's disease as well, but right now still very early days. Moving on. Next category, and the one that comes up very frequently, is injury recovery. And in this category, we're talking about 2 peptides primarily. The first, BPC 157, body protection compound 157. This was initially discovered in the gastric mucosa and the gastric juices, really, and they found that it would actually preserve amputated limbs such that they could be reattached post-surgically. They found that this peptide in the gastric juices actually has broad anti-inflammatory and angiogenic properties. Angiogenic means improving new blood vessel growth. You can appreciate then that in an injury setting, decreasing inflammation and creating new blood vessels can help rapidly, at least theoretically, rapidly improve recovery. Interestingly, BPC 157 was previously FDA cleared until about 2023, when they then removed it again from the market, saying that there's insufficient human data. The other peptide commonly brought up for injury recovery is TB500, thymosin beta 500. This is based on your thymus gland. The thymus gland is a gland in your body that you lose as a young adult that we believe contributes to the accelerated wound healing and minimal scarring that children are lucky enough to have. We don't entirely know why we lose the thymus gland over time. The TB500, in conjunction with the BPC, again creates mechanistically theoretically, again, accelerated wound healing. You'll hear me say theoretically very often because, again, from the FDA's perspective, there's not sufficient human data here to suggest any kind of guaranteed outcome, improvement, etc. We're really working in the biohacking community, and we're just deriving what we know either through anecdotal studies, so somebody says I feel better, and or through animal models. And it's always worth pointing out, you're not a mouse, so you are hopefully going to live much more than 20 months. What does it mean if you're on a peptide for 20 years instead of 18 months? Who knows? So those are the two peptides, BPC-157 and TB-500, that are most commonly utilized in injury recovery. They are most frequently utilized for acute injuries, but occasionally also in chronic injury cases. There are other combinations stacked with them, but that's the kind of bread and butter.